Let's start by reminding you that this is being broadcast on YouTube. And may I welcome councillors and all of you in the council chamber, as well as all of you who are watching online, to this full council meeting of Weymouth Town Council on Wednesday, the 25th of June, 2025. I'd like to start the meeting by paying tribute to a local resident and regular attendee of council meetings, Mr. Eddie Farn, who passed away on the 27th of May. Eddie regularly raised valid issues and challenged the council to provide clear and direct answers. Over the years, he championed the upkeep of our town, the management of the mall, the safety of pedestrians on the Rodwell Trail, and the long-term funding for the council, to name but a few. Eddie always highlighted the difficulty for residents in finding out who to contact at which council, and held councillors to account in a robust style, using props such as overhead projector sheets and chattering teeth to bring his questions to life. Eddie took the time over the years to attend in person, a ceaseless champion for his community and for Weymouth. Eddie was awarded the Men's Community Award in 2024 for precisely these reasons. His funeral will be held at 11:30 this coming Friday at Weymouth Crematorium. Thank you. May we have apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have received apologies from Councillor Surrey, Councillor Joanna Dickinson, Councillor Peter Dickinson, Councillor David Simmel, Councillor John Orrell and Councillor Stephen Dickens.
As previously agreed, I would like to propose, and Councillor Taylor would like to second, that we accept the apologies. Can I have a vote on this, please? Is unanimous, Jen. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Have any of the councillors got any declarations of interest that have not been pre-notified? We haven't had any pre-notification, so we'll take that as read. We come to the minutes. The minutes. The officer's recommendation is that the members approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of May as a true and accurate record and agree that they be signed as such. Has anybody got any comments? No, then I'll take that. A proposer, please. Councillor O'Leary and seconder. Councillor Weller. Oh, sorry, I should have said that should have been, that's my fault. It should have been asked to do it, but if that's all right, thank you. I could go to the vote, please.
17-4. Are you for?
Yeah, 4. Yeah,
18-4.
Any against?
No votes against.
Any abstentions?
1 abstention.
Thank you. Right, we now turn to councillors' questions and statements. Have any councillors got a question or a statement?
Same with none present.
If no councillor has one, then we will move on to the next agenda item. This is my announcements. It has been a very busy few months since I was elected as mayor, but it has been a great pleasure to meet so many people over the past weeks and learn more about the vital work of their organisations. There have been 2 major civic events, starting with the US Memorial Day service on the Esplanade. Then last weekend we had the memorial service and wreath laying outside the Prince Regent, followed by the Veterans Parade, when young and old veterans and cadets, accompanied by marching bands, joined together to form a wonderful special event of thousands of visitors who lined the Esplanade. This was followed by a magnificent display of military vehicles. I would like to publicly thank all the officers and town council staff who worked so hard to make this day a day to remember. I then had the privilege of raising the Armed Forces flag on Monday to mark the beginning of Veterans Week. Over the last 4 weeks, I've attended many events. The Friends of Weymouth and Portland Hospitals AGM, Weymouth Community Expo at the Jubilee Clock, the John Egging Trust Blue Sky graduations, who are doing amazing work with students who need special support to aid them in gaining self-confidence and help their progression with their education. Wacky Wheels Day, which is encouraging the pupils to decorate their bikes, scooters and skates and come to school on that. What a treat it was to see so many different entries, particularly from the Conifer School, so Councillor Hope will know all about that. There must have been over 50 entries. Then I went to the Weymouth Vehicle Preservations Club tour, where I judged the cars before they left, and then the prize giving at the Jubilee Clock after the tour of Dorset. I went to the Littlemore Community Centre to celebrate their 60th anniversary of their opening, and the Junior Angling Club's prize presentation. I then was very pleased to be invited to the induction of the Reverend Gordon Crowther as rector by the Bishop of Salisbury. Following that, there was the Weymouth Civic Awards and then the Rail Safe from Essex Awards. And this is an award given to schools by Rail Network, who the schools take part in their safety training. And I would just like to mention that the senior commercial guard at the station gives up his time involuntarily to go to the schools and do the training for the children. And at present, again, Conifer School is the only school in Weymouth to have taken up this valuable training, and their recognition of their commitment to rail safety training is on a special plaque in the booking hall. All schools have been invited to take part, and I very much hope that many more will do so. I was a guest at the Avon Veterans Association dinner and the last watch ceremony at the Sailors' Return on the harbour side to remember the 833 sailors who lost their lives when HMS Royal Oak was sunk by U-boat Oscar the Flow, and others whose service personnel who gave their lives to support our country. Sadly, this will be the last time this event will take place due to the age of the organiser, Mr. Alvin Hopper. Tuesday saw the Town Council's tea party to thank the many volunteer groups who do such sterling work right across our town. They are the unsung heroes who do so much for our community. Finally, this morning, I attended the presentation of the winter clock face for the lovely clock in Greenhill Gardens. This was generously donated by the head of a company in Italy so that the clock will be able to run for 365 days a year, will not have plants on it, but this beautiful clock face, which is 5.5 feet wide, will be in place. We made a short video to send to Mr. Trevino, who for his generosity, and I'd just like to let you know that his company is a 200-year-old family-run specialist company based in northern Italy that have made clock faces for the Vatican and public buildings in Italy and all around the world. And it was good to have Paul Bird and the Gardens there at the presentation together with the Friends of Greenhill Gardens. I now look forward to a very busy diary in future with future events. Thank you. We now turn to updates from Dorset councillors. Would any Dorset councillor like to give an update? Councillor O'Leary?
Yes, I did. I give a more in-depth, detailed update to TAG, but I won't do it in this setting because of the commercial sensitivity around it. But myself and Councillor Slipper was in attendance as well. I attended a cross-agency meeting about the Riviera, and there is some positive steps forward going on with that. There obviously is a lot of discussion at the minute about possible changes to the booking system for the household recycling centres, which is due to come in September. It's my understanding there won't be a public consultation on it, but I do encourage all members, town and county, to write to the brief holder and to the officers responsible to let their views known. I did submit a motion this morning to Dorset Council, which will call for a vote on this at the July 10th meeting, and so we get some democratic oversight on it. Thank you.
Yeah, trying to keep politics out of this. We've last night had a cabinet meeting which has approved an economic growth strategy, and I think council will have had a couple of presentations, or at least one presentation from one of the senior officers of Dorset Council on the exciting, ambitious and innovative approach that could see considerable investment and growth in Weymouth and Portland area. The hope is that that will then ripple out to the whole of Dorset in the Transwork kind of area. So that's now been approved. There was considerable input from all sides of the Dorset Council chamber and support. So it's a really exciting opportunity for everyone, and for Weymouth Town Council particularly, to be part of a once in a generation opportunity to change, bring growth, bring jobs, and bring the infrastructure advances that we need. And so I think that's something that the town council will do well to note, but continue to stay very closely involved in it. I know that all councillors at Dorset Council are pushing officers to make sure that Weymouth Town councillors and Weymouth Town Council staff are fully involved in the discussions as it moves forward.
Anybody else like to give an update? Councillor Hope?
Thank you very much, Councillor Ryan Hope for Dorset Council, Councillor for Western Ward and Cabinet Member for Customer Culture, Community Engagement. Just to update members in this chamber that the leisure strategy review has been started to undertake, and it's to the intention to fully consult with town and parish councils, so the opportunity will come forward to Weymouth Town Council to feedback in the future provision of leisure across Dorset, but in particular, of course, Weymouth. And a more ward-specific issue, we're pleased to see the delivery of the first implementation of the crossing over in Tapestry Road, giving safe passage there for residents and school users to cross from the cemetery and the crematorium across the road to the marsh. Be further works later on the year around the Admiral Harvey junction, to be referred to as two crossroads. And that will be following on later before consultations happened on that.
Councillor Hope, anybody else? No, then thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 8, public questions. I believe Robert Theobald, you would like to ask a question. Please.
Yes, it's written up there actually, isn't it? Yeah, what progress, I've got to come on there. So my question is, what progress has Weymouth Town Council made towards the achieving of net zero, and at what cost? This question to include all costs of net zero, including physical assets, salary and media costs.
Charmaine, with time.
Thank you. In 2020, the council worked with the Carbon Trust to achieve baseline, identify what actions could be taken to help reduce the council's carbon footprint across scopes 1, 2 and 3. Council have used this information to the decarbonisation strategy and action plans to work in this area. The council have a climate ecological emergency group, CE working group, and this meets on a monthly basis. And this also guides the council's work in this area. The CE group report to the council's Environment and Services Committee to approve decisions. As part of all council reports taken to the committee or full council on any subject, there is a CE assessment given in relation to the impact of the work contained within the report. A list of the work that has been completed covering energy, heat and energy efficiency, transport waste materials, natural assets, freedom of resilience has been compiled, and it has been sent to the resident. It's also been attached to the agenda this evening. We not currently break down expenditure to the level where we can determine costs associated with progress towards net zero, and so we are unable to give this detail. The list of the work that has been completed covering energy, heat and energy efficiency, transport waste materials, natural assets, food and resilience, all referred to above, can be found within the appendix of tonight's agenda.
Is this working now? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'd like to give a little bit of background to this. I think I'm going to say, based on.
Sorry, we don't allow, under our standing orders, additional comments from you on this.
I thought I had 3 minutes to comment.
No, 3 minutes.
I'm on this occasion because I'm uncertain about it. I will allow you a couple of extra minutes, but it should really have been your 3 minutes was with the question. But please go ahead.
Okay,
Thank you.
so this work is based on, what I'm going to say now is based on the work of Professor Michael Kelly, who's an emeritus professor of engineering in Cambridge University. He did a survey for the city of Cambridge on the cost of net zero, and his estimate for that was 700 million. So if you extrapolate the population of the city of Cambridge to the population of Weymouth, it's approximately 3 times bigger than Weymouth. So then we could think something in the region of 200 million for this town to achieve 80% net zero with a payback time of 30 to 40 years, which I don't think is very practical, to be honest with you. You could spend that money much better in other departments. If you had this net zero, you need to spend 1.4 trillion pounds to upgrade the electricity system of this country, to provide power for ground transport, heat, industrial, commercial and domestic property. The average house, it would cost £85,000 to update it for net zero. That would be changing the electrical system from 60 amps to 120 amps, internal and external insulation. So that's be another cost there. 360 windmills would be needed to supply the same electricity as one gas turbine, which costs 200 million. And that gas turbine can last 60 years. The windmills last about 25 years. And the windmills need a foundation, each one of 300 tons of concrete. The battery storage, Professor Kelly said it's blatant lies.
Could I just ask you to wind up now, please?
Yeah, sure. I think I've got the general gist across. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next we will have a statement read out by Mel Corbett. Who's from the Friends of Radical Park and Gardens.
Hi, repeat you now. My name is Mel Corbold and I've been asked to come and speak on behalf of the Friends of Radcliffe Park and Gardens, Mama Bee's Cafe, our volunteers, the gardeners, the dog walkers, the joggers, the perambulators, the toddlers, the coffee and cakers, all the people who love the park. Since opening last summer, on our non-flooded days, whether warm and sunny or grey and gloomy, the park is buzzing with activity. Groups of adults and children with special needs, older people with mobility issues getting out and about with cycling without age, the 20 to 30 Petanque gang twice a week enjoying the company of others and the fresh air, toddlers charging around the play park before a nature walk and a freshly baked cake from Mama Bee's, followed by smelling the flowers and hunting out a fairy doll. Often we're pottering early morning in the sensory garden to the sound of laughter, scampering feet and the bang of a basketball. Mostly it's kids in hoodies who may well otherwise be at home stuck in front of screens. And that is just the everyday stuff. This summer, we have a series of oversubscribed craft workshops, pottery, fabric, flowers and creative writing. We've had a teddy bears picnic with a choir, nature trail, craft activities and wildlife stores. There's band in the park in July, bi-weekly volunteer sessions, gardening sustainably in the sensory garden and helping the council out with the Greater Park area and the orchard. And every other weekend, we have plant sales to raise money for a free community fun day in June of next year. All of this activity will have to grind to a halt in October. Not because it gets cold or is more likely to rain. Past year has shown that that does not stop people coming, and we had 50 attend our AGM in the park in February. No, it has to stop because of the likelihood of long-term flooding. There were 60 days of last year when the cafe was not able to operate properly, either because the entire area was underwater, the car park was flooded, deliveries couldn't be made, or the bin area was not accessible. Individual rainy days can be dealt with, but months on end with no through traffic has been a massive blow. The long-planned Christmas fair was cancelled with no plans to rearrange because the car park was completely flooded for 3 days. There are 4 groups with additional needs who regularly come to the park, and they weren't able to come for 2 months because they couldn't safely access the pathways with wheelchairs, and the toddler group stayed somewhere indoors. It's been hugely difficult for Karen and Jess at Mama Bee's. contractually obliged to wade through the floods to open whilst inaccessible to the customers they rely on. In the long term, this will make the cafe unsustainable. There is such an opportunity to create a wonderful year-round hub of activity,
Can I
creativity
just ask you to wind up?
and mindfulness. If we could just rely on the accessibility of the facilities, not just for the residents, and a quick look at the car park shows how full it is. Okay, well, I'll skip out the next bit. I'll just say, please can we just finish the job? Make Radipole Park and Gardens your legacy to the people of Weymouth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, you're very
Thank you.
detailed. And can I just say that this was going to be discussed now under item 13 on our agenda this evening. I hope we'll be able to stay for
Well,
that.
indeed. Thank you very much.
Could I now ask Mr. Richard Butler, who would like to make a statement? Thank you.
Hello, is it still on?
No.
No, that's on. Okay, so I'm Richard Butler. Councillor Dickinson suggested I come along just to speak briefly about the 20-mile-an-hour limits. I strongly advocate proceeding with the bid for the 20-mile-an-hour limit project. We need more 20-mile-an-hour limits in the town, but also consistency about how they're implemented across the town. It's all a bit random at the moment. We should reduce speeds on rat runs while keeping the flow on the main roads. As an example, I live on Coombe Valley Road and my children go to the school access from Coombe Valley Road, which lost the crossing patrol last year. All the families living on the road and adjoining estates should be able to walk safely to school and indeed to walk to other places as well. And vehicle speed is a significant factor in it being safe. So, for example, where the crossing is, if it was a 20-mile-an-hour limit, that would be safe. But in the narrow bits of Coombe Valley Road, if vehicles were limited to 20 miles an hour, it would be safer. There's lots of other things that could be done in both places, but it's a simple thing that can be done and it can be effectively monitored to see that it is done, unlike some of the other things like the 6 foot 6 inch width limit on the road, which is widely ignored and not offenders aren't dealt with on that. That's all.
Thank you very
Please
much.
vote for it. Crack on with it.
Thank you very much. This is going to be discussed under item 14 on the agenda this evening, and likewise, I hope you'll be able to stay to hear the debate on that. Thank you. And finally, Honorary Alderman Peter Rendell would like to make a statement.
Old age won't come along. Our mayor, councillors and officers of Weymouth Council. And I would like to say a big thank you. I suppose you're thinking, what's he going to say now? Since I've had to use a walking stick, I have received nothing but kindness from all walks of life. This last Sunday was no exception. We arrived and our friends stopped at the entrance to the area we needed to be, which was cordoned off. A kind gentleman working there let us right through to the actual place we wanted to be, the Prince Regent. The council staff provided me with a seat where I could see the procedure throughout the service. And then making our way down to the stand. Help was still at hand. Given by, I hope I got the names right, Charmaine, Assistant Town Clerk, and then Charlotte, Community Officer. If it hadn't been for them, I would never have got down to the stand. And I were being well looked after by the assistance of Councillor Kate Weather and Larry O'Leary and Honourable Alderman Christine James watching over us. We feel just to say thank you is not enough, and wish that our thanks are recorded for the kindness and help given to us by the staff and members of Weymouth and Melbourne Regis Council. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Alderman Randall, and thank you very much indeed. I know it's greatly appreciated by everyone that you've mentioned. Thank you. Right, we move on now to item 9, the internal audit report, and I'll ask Ian to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Chair. By way of introduction, I would just like to say that the next few items are all part of our year-end process, and we are required to take each one in turn as per our codes of practice and practitioners' guides, and we need to do them individually and get a resolution for each one. So the first one, which we're asking members to consider, is the internal audit reports. There are 2 reports which have been attached to the agenda. There's one which forms part of the actual annual governance return form itself, and that concludes that all internal control objectives have actually been met. And the second one is a letter written by the internal auditor, just outlining some of the things which he found during his audit, good practice, and things where we comply with the relevant legislation. As part of this item, we would normally be required to agree action for any recommendations which the internal auditor has made. As there are no recommendations within the reports to be considered, we're just asking that the 2 documents are noted.
Thank you. I think it's impressive to see that for yet another year, the internal auditors have raised no questions, and I congratulate Ian Milne and his team on this, and the other officers who've all contributed to this clean bill of health. Would any councillors wish to comment? Councillor Clifford.
Councillor Sumter, well, I would like to add my praise to yours. If only other authorities not so far away were able to complete such a clean audit, we'd be in a great place.
Are there any other comments? If there's no further questions, may I ask for a proposer? Councillor Harris. And Councillor Rose seconding, and may I ask you to vote on this? So we move on to item 10, approval of the annual governance statement for 24-25. Again, Ian, may I ask you to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. So the next part of the annual governance return is the annual governance statement, which requires the town clerk and I to go through the assertions which have been included in the agenda to make sure that we meet all of those control objectives. Having gone through those, we can confirm that we do comply with all of those assertions, and as such, we've completed the annual governance statement to that effect. So what we need tonight, Chair, is for members to agree that the annual governance statement can be signed by yourself and the town clerk, being passed on to the external auditors.
Does any councillor wish to comment? Councillor Norton.
Thank you. We have looked at this as members of the Finance and Governance Committee, and I'd recommend that councillors follow the recommendation. Thank you.
Would you like to propose?
I'd like to propose that we vote on the matter, and thank you.
Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Williams. May I ask you all to vote?
I mean, votes in favour, and that's unanimous, Chair, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
As we see it, and then ask him to introduce item 11, approval of the financial statement for 24-25.
Thank you, Chair. So the next part is the annual county statements, which you will all have seen as part of the agenda, much more than most councillors will be expecting from other authorities. These county statements have been inspected by the internal auditor, and he has confirmed that they are a true fair view of our financial position and the transactions throughout the year. So again, we are asking members to approve the county statements and ask that the chair sign them accordingly. And the second part is you'll see that there's a right for inspection, and we need to publish a notice for 30 days, which includes the first 10 days of July, and the dates are included within the agenda, so we just need to confirm that those dates are accepted as well.
Any councillor wish to comment? Councillor Norton.
Again, I attended the Finance and Governance meeting, and Councillor Civil is not here to support the motion, so I would again like to propose that we move to vote.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Baird. And may I ask you all to vote?
Again, this is votes in favour of. And that's unanimous again, Chair, thank you.
Right, item 12, the financial outturn for the 24-25. Sorry, I've got signs there. Thank you. And Ian, if you could please introduce the report.
Okay, so the final part of this is just to get members to note the underspend for the financial year. This is in line with where we were roughly predicting when we did the budget monitoring within a year, so there's no additional things to report on that. We also need just to confirm the balance of the reserves at the year end, which is within the recommendation. And the final part, Chair, is just a bit of tidying up on some of the reserves which have already been used and they had slight balances on them, just to return those to unallocated balances so that they can be used for alternative purposes.
Thank you. Any comments from any of the councillors? Councillor Lovell.
Thank you. At the Finance and Governance meeting, I asked some questions of the Finance Officer, which reassured me that whilst the money that we held had come down, we have increased our assets. Radicole Park and Gardens now being an asset, Tumbledown Farm now having buildings which act as assets. So you saw, if you like, the change of capital reserves into assets. So that's a detail in the accounts, but I'd recommend again that we approve this as stated in the report. Thank you.
So could I have a proposal, please?
Yes, happy to propose.
Councillor. What's the question? Sorry, we'll ask her. I do beg your pardon.
So Councillor Sanders, so that I'm very happy to understand about this. I just didn't quite understand why risk management was amber. And I'm happy to not get a response now, but perhaps outside of the meeting, someone can explain. It feels like the council's making a democratic decision that isn't a risk.
This is in the impact assessment.
I think traditionally it's been included because it's just highlighted the fact that although we're not asking for the underspend to be allocated as part of this report, it's just identifying that if members don't allocate some of that underspend to its assets in the future, then there may be risks to payments.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I've just got a question around some of the 106 agreement funds within Appendix I. I seem to recall that we've seen a lot of these sitting around now for a number of years. And I'm wondering, probably not again now, but would we not become a report on 106 agreements brought forward, probably to Finance and Governance, to actually start using some of this money in the town? I'm unsure how much of this is actually earmarked. There's a small amount in the Fairway Court, which is in my ward, very small. I'm not going to get a lot for it, but I'd like to start seeing some of this 106 money used to deliver on some of the council priorities. and actually improve some of our local community assets and the whole town.
I can do, Chair. What we can see, and I don't know if this is protocol, but the section 106, we've got £2,000 left, which can only be spent in those areas which are identified here. The Heritage Lottery funding, section 106 has obviously been used for the work which has been undertaken at the Radcliffe Park and Gardens, and that's why you'll see on the right hand side that those funds have been used.
Anyone else like to comment? So then, sorry, councillor Hunt.
Sorry, Chair, thank you for the clarification on the 106 and what's left. But there's still, like I said, the two, Lanehouse Rocks Road and Fairway Court, I think it has been hanging around for a while. And it would be used to know, I know it's not great for the money, but still, how can we use that in the ward, around the ward, wherever it's restricted, to actually deliver something with it? Because sitting in our bank for how long it has done is probably no great benefit to anyone.
Thank you, thank you. If there's nobody else, then can I ask for a proposer and a seconder, please?
I propose.
You propose,
I second.
councillor O'Leary second, and then can we take a vote that we agree to the recommendations?
Is unanimous, Chair, thank you.
Right, so we now move on to item 13, which is project planning for 25-26, and I'll ask Ian Hill to introduce this again, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this one relatively brief, as there will obviously be slightly more debate, I would imagine, going forwards on this one. It's at this time that members normally agree to allocate the underspend or spare surplus we have to their priorities for the next 12 months. Members will be aware from the agenda that there are a number of projects which have been proposed over the last 12 months and before. And because the total of those projects outweigh the amount of funding, we've held off to this stage so that members can agree collectively their priorities rather than just agree things previously on a first come, first served basis. There were a number of members who attended a members briefing last week, and I thank them for their attendance and their input. There was a good number there. And that briefing gave us some steer in terms of the office recommendation. And I would just draw members' attention to the office's recommendations to be slightly amended following that briefing to include the path work at Radcliffe Park and Gardens. So the recommendation is that these projects are agreed as priorities for the coming year, and that gives some surplus for any other projects which may come up that haven't already been identified.
Thank you. Any comments from councillors on this? Councillor Clifford.
So can I just ask, Radcliffe Path, will that fix the problem? Because it seems like a relatively small amount to deal with a significant flooding issue.
So the original plans that were put forward were a part of the project list that were in Council Bell back around 140k, and that would have helped towards the flooding works, but nothing's going to ever resolve that because it's a floodplain area. So the figures up there, which is shown this evening, would be for a raised path that would about 200 metres, about 200 metres. So it would help, but it would not solve the problem.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, so the 34,000, I think it's quite like just under that, is for raising the path from the community orchard at the north of the site down towards the children's play area. So improve access from the Radcliffe area to the north of the park. At the moment, the path around the field is underwater for significant chunks of the year. And you see people walk along it, get halfway along it, turn around, go back, get very frustrated. So they improve access. The other money that was in sort of came off the back of the pillar submitted was for drainage system essentially under the children's play area. I know that Ben has gone away and collected quotes for that and designs. I met with one of the drainage consultants with Ben at the park, and a lot of effort's gone into that. In an ideal world, would I want to see it all done now? Absolutely. And originally the plan was to sort of crack on with that in the autumn, as I understand it from Ben, but without Ben here to confirm timings. But that was my understanding on previous conversations. The path is a mitigation that will allow people to work their way through the park area, into the park area during those sort of shoulder seasons and winter months, but even during summer storms, we've been finding that path is under a certain amount of water and preventing people entering. Ideal world, would I rather see all the money up there and the drainage going in? Absolutely. And we heard brilliantly from Mel and Radipole, friends of Radipole Park Gardens earlier, how much they are doing on that site and how it really has been embraced by the community. It's not small footfall on that site, it's large numbers throughout the year, in the cold, in the wet. We know it's not the weather that stops them to turn out for everything, the locals around that park, and also from across the town. And we know that from all the conversations that happen. It's not just serving residents of Radipole, it's got a really widespread and big sphere of influence, and people coming in for pretty unique clubs like the Petanque Club and all sorts of other activities. So I hope that's just a little explainer of the difference between the path work as a mitigation to get us slightly above the water and the further parts of the pit, which included a more established drainage system.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My question isn't specifically on that point, but more to do with the whole recommendation. So I don't know if you're happy for me to ask that now, or if you want us to finish up on that point first.
Yeah, if you'd like to ask it now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking at Appendix J for the item 13, and I'm looking at the justification why we're putting these projects forward. And I have to confess, I didn't manage to attend the briefing session last week when most of this was discussed. So I come at this with some element of ignorance, so to say. But from what I can see here, probably 5 of the projects is to do with maintenance and urgent maintenance, which makes me think that our asset management strategy probably isn't quite robust enough, and therefore driving the budget requirements we need to be doing this work on. I'm failing to understand why this is coming through as a priority project, when the majority of this should be business as normal. Managing our assets, maintaining our assets. So it's just an observation, because obviously I'm sure Councillor O'Leary will support me here. We'd love to see the notice of motion that myself and Councillor Bell put forward 14 months ago, moved up the list as a priority project. And we'd love to see more money going into Radipole Gardens to have a more sustained way forwards. Tumbledown, we're relocating the nursery to Tumbledown. That's been an aspiration of this council for many years. It's been pushed back. And it seems like the funding's going on, business as normal, because the budget's not right and the strategy's not right. That saying, I'm minded to support it because I can see the reputational risk in some elements of these projects if we don't spend the money and don't get this done now. And it will end up costing more as water ingresses into this building, for example. But it's just an observation that I think we need to be monitoring this under the budget review more tightly next year. So a message in the absence of Councillor Siddle to Councillor Northam as the vice chair of that now, that we need to really nail down on what is required for maintenance to get that right in the budget to make that strategy work, so that we're not actually taking away from the opportunity to deliver real change in the town.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to respond to that, or? Would any other councillor wish to comment? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, I just want to support what Councillor Hope said. I think the meeting last week was very good because it allowed us to have an open and frank discussion prior to this meeting. But on the other side of things, in regards to the projects we were given, the alternative of not do an overcome toilet is they close. The alternative of not funding a refurbishment here is it gets worse and it deteriorates. It wasn't a project. These aren't projects in regards to what I think many residents would think of something new or an upgrade. It is more of a business as usual thing. And I think that has to be built into, as council said, a budget going forward, as opposed to using reserves or underspend to fund these things. Because what happens if we were in a worse position than we are now? We'd have to bid further into reserves, I assume, as opposed to, having money to play around with, which we are very grateful for.
Thank you. I will allow you to speak second time.
Thank you. I suppose going off the back of that is, can I ask a question, why we're not using reserves, given our healthy state of reserves, to actually carry out some of these emergency works rather than the underspend that we could be using to deliver some real priorities that this council's got?
So I think the answer to that is, I would propose that on the back of that finance and governance in the first instance has a review of the reserves which we're holding, because they've been earmarked by the full council previously for specific purposes already. So members are able to consider whether they still remain their priorities and they want to use the money in a way that they were originally allocated, or actually whether they want to take a step back and put those into alternative uses.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you. I just want to remind councillors that we still have £150,000 left to think about spending on proper projects, as you say, the ones that will actually have a new impact on residents. There may be some other funding that comes up in a priority, but we wanted to have time to just reflect on that over the summer period and then come back refreshed in the autumn and make some decisions on spending a little bit more money on some of those things that I know that residents here would love to see happen. I'd also, while I'm speaking, just like to make the point to one of our earlier questioners who was talking about £200 million that Cambridge would have had to do some work on net zero. Our budget is £4 million. So I think I can reassure him that we're not spending any vast sums of money on the projects that he was worried about. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else like to come in? Therefore, can I ask for a proposal that we accept the officer's recommendations? Right, so it's as out here with the addition of the pathway at Renfrew Garden. So councillor Hope.
Chair, sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to make that proposal with an additional recommendation, if I may, which is that we do ask finance and governance to do a review of our reserves to see whether or not any of those reserves can be used to support these projects instead. I'm thinking about overcome toilets. We've got a toilet reserve for replacement rather than repairs. So I'd like to add that in as a second part of the recommendation, that finance and governance do a full review on our reserves policy and look at freeing up reserves to actually carry out some of these instead of returning the funds to this pot for later distribution.
Absolutely.
No, I'm just happy to second that.
That's an amendment.
It's not an amendment because nothing has been proposed at this stage. This is merely an officer recommendation. So somebody can propose A to H, and that is the initial proposal because nothing has been proposed at this stage.
So could I have a proposal then, please? Councillor Clifford. Sorry, you're councillor host, sorry, you're proposing. Councillor Clifford, would you wish to hand up a second? Thank you. So all those in favour?
Is this the amendment?
No, the whole.
With my addition.
Yeah, so A to H, as up on the screen, you're voting on all of those now, and that is unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Right, we now move on then to agenda item 14, the PID for 20 mile an hour speed limits. And I'd ask town clerk and councillor Bell if they'd like to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Probably not too much from me, other than to say that councillors do have the PID in front of them as part of the agenda pack, and that that was brought forward following the project initiation document, which is what PID stands for, in case anyone is wondering, following the policy on that. But I would defer any introduction on the actual content to Councillor Bell, who proposed the PID. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much, and my friend's really annoying. Thank you to all the councillors that responded with comments, views, support, as I went through the process of producing the PID. It came following sort of regular interest and concerns from residents in my ward about 20 mile per hour, particularly around St John's Primary School, the roads leading up to Weymouth College. That led to wider conversations, and it became very, very apparent that councillors across the town receive these quite regularly. Now, that's not to say there's blanket, desire for that amongst the community, and that's what we're looking to establish here. Is there that widespread, significant community support? And this PID doesn't commit a particular position or policy point. It allows our community to be heard, and it needs to be something that's open to all to contribute to. It's going to have an effect across the town potentially. And it basically allows us to see if there's a desire within Weymouth community for 20 mile per hour limits or zones in different areas of the town, and crucially on different road types. If there is significant community support, then the project can be progressed into the assessment process through Dorset Council. The PID allows our officers to move forward with this, to work alongside colleagues at Dorset Council to produce a survey, which you didn't say about the local transport plan. I'll just refer to the town clerk briefly to explain something that's come about with the potential survey and how it will link in with other things.
Thank you, Chair, if I may. I didn't want to steal too much of your thunder, Councillor Bell, being that this was your PID, but to confirm that it is a requirement from Dorset Council for any implementation of 20 mile an hour limits and zones that extensive consultation is carried out with residents and with the wider community. And Dorset Council have confirmed that they're happy to include that consultation over the summer as part of the LTP, the Local Transportation Plan consultation that Dorset Council are carrying out anyway. So while everyone locally is being asked about the wider transportation issues, they can be asked about 20 mile per hour zones in Weymouth. Thank you. Councillor Norton. Sorry, Councillor.
Can I just carry on after that clarification? So I wanted to leave that to the town clerk just to confirm, because it was from your conversations with Dorset Council. So there's lots of potential benefits cited within the PID. I'm not going to go through the references now, they're in the PID, but obviously there's improved road safety, reduced road traffic collisions, reduced road casualties and fatalities. They're all referenced within the PID and sourced. There's also the potential to increase well-being in the town. Wider benefits that some studies have found include more physical activity, better mental health, encouraging active travel such as walking and cycling, improving air quality for various reasons. That's not just to do with exhaust coming out the back of cars, it's also to do with things like brake dust, etc. And also reducing noise pollution, which I know in a lot of our communities is something that does raise a lot of concern from time to time, widespread across the town, and certainly within my area, within Radipole. So lots within the PID, lots of councillors have lent their support. It gives the community a voice, and we can find out what the community is after, what their views are, and then if there's that significant community support, we move it along the chain and along the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Norton.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to commend Councillor Bell for bringing this forward. When I spoke with Dorset Council a few years back, I was referred to the process. I read the process for getting a 20 miles an hour, and it's written around a little village in the middle of nowhere, getting a 20 mile an hour, and the vote that's involved is relatively trivial, and really, there's no alternative routes. And our problem in Weymouth is if you put 20 mile an hour zoning somewhere, they'll all find another route, so rat runs. So looking at it systematically across the whole of the town is exactly the right sort of approach. So I hope when members of the public look at this, they don't just think about their house, they think of the impact on the whole of Weymouth and unblocking some of our transport issues, but also making it safer for our residents, both Hull and Young, and probably in between. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, thank you very much. I think obviously when people see 20-mile-an-hour things, they think this is a big anti-car, ploy, etc., a big plot to get people out of their cars. I can think I'm probably the best person to speak that is a support of 20-mile-an-hour. This is not what this is. This is a positive step. This is taking the public along with us. This isn't an imposition of 20-mile-an-hour zones in areas that don't want them. This is a complete opposite. And I look to reassurance that any residents that don't want 20-mile-an-hour on their road, if that is the majority, won't have 20-mile-an-hour on the road, and those that do will have them. I attempted a 20-mile-an-hour system on Littlemore with the late Councillor Friary. We paid a lot of money out of our own pocket. I mean hundreds of pounds for traffic surveys at Dorset Council, and it was just never ending because it's so complicated. So I'm very grateful that this has been brought forward and being done in a more uniformed way. So it has my full support.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. I speak as a member who has a 20-mile-an-hour zone in my ward. Big thanks there to our leader of this council, Councillor Harris, in a previous life at Dorset County Council, pushed for that, along with former councillors such as the Honourable Christine James. So they are fantastic. And what I will say though, with this process, and I'm all supporting the PID this evening, but I think it's very clear now at this point, we realise as members that if we want to go for this, Dorset Council will be looking to Weymouth Town Council to fund the delivery. Dorset Council's new model of working is around supporting town councils delivering for their communities and doing that in partnership. But the funds available at Dorset Council for these schemes of work at the moment isn't going to deliver what we want here in Weymouth. And especially if Chickwell and Portland want to join in on this process, and we have it as a tri-council area, then when it comes to the actual delivery and the installation, they will be looking to those councils for funding. So I think it's just going into this process with very open eyes that if we are supporting it as much as I'm reading the room is tonight, then we've just got to look forward to those futures, considering the conversation we just had on budgets, that we need to start building reserves for delivery.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that, Councillor Bell?
It does just relate to that point, if that's okay. Thank you. I don't disagree that there may be funding implications. When I spoke to the officer, road safety manager, I believe it's the title up at Dorset Council, because of the scale of the potential area involved, there are pots of money that are accessible that wouldn't be available in the same way to small villages or to local transport plans. I don't have the full details with me, but that was part of the conversation. Now, whether that bears fruit, that's obviously for our officers to work with Dorset Council and establish the realities of that, but that's certainly been part of the conversations I've had. Also scale and access to funds due to that. Just wanted to pass that.
Councillor Weber.
Very much, Madam Mayor. Agree completely with everything that everybody said. I spoke to county council officers when I was first elected, I can't remember when. And there was no one happy to support me at that time. The climate has changed and people are keen to talk about this, and I think that we have to grab the ball by the horns now. There may be financial issues. We must cross those bridges when we come to them. Let's not use the initiatives that we have, the support not just locally but nationally now for reducing speed limits in heavily populated areas, and we should be at the very least doing everything we can to review and to survey our residents and follow through.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Atkinson.
Yes, I support but what I wanted to know is what is a successful consultation? How is that decided? What is the portion of people voting for it or whatever, that would decide it was a positive. I don't know, is it 51% or whatever? Because it might be divisive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's not information we currently have. We can ask Dorset Council those questions, unless there are, any pockets of information in the room, Madam Mayor, we'll need to take that away and talk about that.
Would anybody else like to comment? Councillors Gifford, please.
Quick query, so on finance, this would not come from Dorset's revenue, which is tied, it will come from capital. And will probably come from a government grant rather than anything else, so I think that whilst going in with our eyes open, I think it wouldn't have an impact on Dorset Council. What the thing I don't see in this really good document is anything about enforcement. The chap who came and asked the really good question talked about Coombe Valley Road, whereas the width restriction, he actually used the words, is widely ignored. So that's the concern, is that where is the enforcement is, are the police going to be brought in as part of this document, as part of the road safety team, and how does the enforcement part of it work?
Again, Chair, that's not information we have to hand at the moment, but we can look into that if, and I think there might be some information from the room.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much. From my experience of my own street and wards, they are very rarely enforced by police. However, saying that, the majority of residents slow down.
Yeah.
So if you can slow down 95% of the traffic users in that community, is going to have a positive impact. I think what Councillor Clifford's alluding to would be a question to probably the Police and Crime Commissioner to see his priorities on road safety and see whether or not he would support enforcement of the 20-mile-an-hour zones.
Councillor
Could we go to a vote, Madam Mayor? Everything else now is speculation. We need to know the facts and we need to know that our residents, want to support this. So if we could go to a vote, please, now, I'd like to propose.
So can I just read out what the officer's recommendation is, because this is an important one.
Sorry, well, I have to second.
Full council approved the PID for progression to the project planning stage with a report including costings, implications and survey results. We brought back at the earliest opportunity to allow progression at the Dorset Council. So Councillor Bell, you are going to propose, and Councillor, do you know if I have to second it? Thank you. All in favour?
That is unanimous, Chair. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you. So we move on now to item number 15, the renewal of updated bench policy 25 to 30.
Thank you. At the Environment and Services Committee on the 4th of June, members considered a revised bench policy. And this was recommended to full council as long as the following amendments were made, and they have been made. This included including the process flowed through the policy, clarifying that Raven Town Council do not cut the grass around highway benches, clarifying with regards to clarification with regards to 7 days removal of flowers, clear wording with regards to items placed on the benches, and also details on what happens when the items are removed from benches. All these additions or amendments have been included. As part of committee resolution as well, officers are asked to review and look at insurance details around benches. As officers, we have looked at the insurance details around benches, and if anything was to happen to a bench, then it is the responsibility of the town council to make any maintenance or replace the bench, as the bench remains council's asset throughout the life of this bench, and therefore it's the responsibility of the council and not of the sponsor. So I recommend things like that.
Would any councillors like to comment? Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, I raised this when it came to committee, because I was concerned that somebody could pay for a bench on Wednesday, someone could drive into it on Thursday, and the individual then have to, we were a bit concerned that the individual may, have to replace it out of their own pocket. So I'm pleased to say the council will take responsibility for that, so therefore it does have my support, and I have to second it. So the chairman, for instance, wants to propose.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also pleased to see that some of the amendments put forward by ENS, proposed by myself also, have been included. I think one that was mentioned at ENS, sorry, Environment Services, was for an online version of this form, we've linked into our webpage. And I don't know, we had clarification whether or not that will be available. Not everyone has printers at their home to be able to print this off, fill it in. Not everyone has a PC to be able to get Word to populate this to then send it back in. And it's very similar to Yellow Line requests. I've had 3 phone calls this week from people that ran the offices trying to do the same. So we really need all these sort of application forms as type forms on our website to support these policies and processes, because at the moment, they're really unusable by most of our residents.
I'm happy to respond to that question. So it's something we're currently working with our communications team to develop. So over the coming month, we will be pushing out more online forms. But at the moment, that one isn't available, but we are pushing this forward.
Any other councillors like to comment?
Thank you very much. Can I ask the Assistant Town Clerk for a time frame on that? Because I think I've been asking for these online forms for a long time and been told they're coming. So, yeah, and Councillor Furman has also. So is there a time frame? Will it be done by the end of this calendar year?
So I'm happy to take that away and work with business managers to put a project, or not for the plan, but some timescales together, and I can circulate them rather than bring them back to committee. I'm happy to circulate them to all councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Northern.
Thank you. There's a briefing coming up for Dorset councillors on the future Dorset Council. Part of the future Dorset Council is transforming online inquiries from the public and revising the forms and such like that, coming forward, so that there's a one point of contact. When that was raised, I said, what about the town councils and the parish councils? And they said, yes, they would be talking to the towns and parish councils, because quite often people don't know who's responsible for what. So I think there's a short-term update the forms as requested, but I think there's also keep an eye on what's coming forward from Dorset Council, because they will be spending more money on this than Weymouth Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Therefore, can we turn to the vote, please, to approve the recommendation of the new venture policy 2025 to 2030? I have a proposal, please. Louis earlier and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour?
That is unanimous.
No, it's not.
No. 18. Or
Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? One.
so carry with one abstention.
Right, we'll now turn to item 16, which is the corporate plan refresh, and I'll ask Ian Mill to speak to this.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall that about this time each year, we take the opportunity to refresh the corporate plan, mostly in terms of the message from the mayor. Just to update that each year when we do have the new mayor in place. We've taken the opportunity this year to really look at how we can make our corporate plan as engaging as we possibly can, not just for staff, not just for councillors, but for the public as well. And my thanks to Zach in our resort team for the work he's put into the redesign of this. So members have the corporate plan, the refresh in front of you as part of the agenda pack to reassure you that there are no changes in terms of the priorities that you have previously agreed. But what we've taken the opportunity to do is to, underneath each of those priorities, say what we're going to do for the year. To make that a much more forward-facing document so the public can look at that and know what we as a council are intending to do over the coming year and what those priorities are. Myself and Ian and Charmaine particularly, who's done a lot of work on this, will be happy to answer any questions that councillors may have.
Any councillor questions, please? Councillor Clifford.
This goes back to my previous comment about impact assessment, and we have to be consistent. We're going to be amber on risk management or an impact assessment, because councillors might make decisions that mean money doesn't go into an area, then it should be amber. Alternatively, we could just take a sensible approach and take it out of the previous impact assessment and make that green.
I'm on the wrong page. Get the right one.
So
So with regards to risk management, there are no direct impacts on risk management from this report, which is just to approve the new look refresh document, not to reapprove the priorities themselves, which have already been agreed.
And so Simon's want to say, previously, we said that if councils make decisions that take money away from where they were intended, there's a risk. This is the same. If councils decide that they change their minds during the course of the year about not supporting some of the council's priorities, there's a risk. Now, I think you're absolutely right to have what you are, but you can't have it in this one and not in the other one. They have to be consistent. Not getting a nod from people who know.
I'm happy to take the pragmatic view of changing the previous.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask, having skimmed through it, it's a very attractive document and I commend the person who's worked on it. Can I ask, do we print it and do we circulate it to any of the organisations in the town so that they are aware of what we're doing and how well we're doing and what our plans are?
So we haven't previously printed it, but something we spoke about this week is actually, what's the point in having a corporate plan? No one knows what it is. So it's actually how do we promote it, not just to our partners, to our members as well. I've spoken to members over the last few weeks. What are our priorities? So again, it's to promote that more and even to our officers. So I think going forward, we are looking to promote that more and distribute it more. And as you, over the coming weeks, you'll start to see around the offices the 5 corporate priorities, I think it is, that we have. We're going to start to look to promote that more internally as well, so people are aware of what we plan to do going forward, and why we're doing what we're doing.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. I've got no problems with the content of this. Also, there's some very minor changes. I think Zach's done a wonderful job of reformatting it to actually make it a more readable document. The use of infographics, the colours, it is a much better looking document. And then I turn to page 11, which has got 25 motley faces on it. And I think it's just a shame that so much effort's been put into the rest of this document to be more uniform in its approach. And you've got 25. Unfortunately, Councillor Shirley looks like it's a passport photo taken, or you know,
Crime Watch.
David Sybil, you can just see his eyes. And I was just please, can we just get some updated photos in a more uniform setting, same background, all of us. Councillor Furman, I'm not even going to mention what you look like in that photo.
A living legend.
I'm not bringing it, making it personal, but yeah, some of us have those taken after no sleep, endless election nights. We all got a story behind these photos, I know, but it's just a shame when the rest of the document looks fantastic. There's no uniform on this page. But for the content, everything else, the priorities fully support.
Chairman, yes, just to come back on that, we totally agree with you. It's something that we're working on with our comms team. And we were going to take some photos. We were going to take some photos at the last full council meeting, but it's just something that we never got round to. So we take that on board, and we're also going to be extending that to our staff, so that our staff have ones as well. So we're soon launching a internal internet site, so all those photos will be consistent. And thank you for your comments regarding the branding. It's something we want to roll out across the whole organisation, so we've got consistency everywhere. Even though we've got brand guidelines, it doesn't always you know, it's not always been to practice. So that's what we're hoping to do going forward.
And just to say, when we do get around to taking those corporate head and shoulder shots of you all, this document will be automatically updated with those. We won't be bringing it back and asking for you to approve everybody's individual photos.
Please come back to them. Councillor North.
I think my point's been overtaken by what councillor, town council, thank
Would
you.
anybody else like to comment? Councillor Clifford.
Thank you for allowing me a second go. So it's just the corporate priorities and the language used. Aspirational is a great word. It's not readily understood and it's difficult to read for people who don't have significant reading skills. I just wondered whether throughout the course of these, some of these promises, the reading age is reasonably high, whereas I know that we as always politicians try to keep reading age fairly low so that we are more accessible, which is ironic when we look at one being accessible. I just wonder whether there's an element of the language that might be, if not this time round, that at some stage we look at the language and make it plainer.
We can certainly take that board going forward, but thanks for those comments and yeah, we, next time we do a refresh, we can that, thank you.
Anybody else like to comment? Then can we, I ask for a proposer and a seconder to the officer's recommendation. Oh, sorry, councillor.
Proposer, I would like to propose.
Thank you.
I mean, proposing food.
Councillor Hayter, thank you. All those in favour?
That is unanimous, thank you.
Right, we move on now to item 17, the petitions policy, and I'd ask Ian to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Chair. The petitions policy was one for which the Finance and Governance Committee considered at its meeting earlier this month. There were a number of recommendations made by the Finance and Governance Committee, and these have been incorporated into the policy that you have before you. There were other points raised at the Finance and Governance Committee around, well, let Councillor O'Leary may expand if he would like to, around trying to get out to residents that petitions aren't always the best way forwards, and actually approaching a councillor who may be able to assist with motions or other forms of getting that onto council agenda. So I just mentioned that as that was a discussion which we had at Finance and Governance Committee, but we're asking that the amended petitions policy be approved for adoption at full council.
Any councillor would like to ask you any questions on that? No. And could I ask please for a proposer and seconder? Councillor Weller, seconder. Councillor O'Leary, and all those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair, thank you.
So we now move on to the scrutiny policy, and again, I'd ask Ian to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. Again, another one which went to the previous meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee. There were no recommended changes to the policy. So what we have before you was as written. If there's any questions, then Town Clerk will be able to answer any of the detail which is contained within.
Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm totally in favour of just about all of what's here, but I have one cause for concern. It says in paragraph 3, for scrutiny to be effective, it needs to be seen as a critical friend. If the only means of having a scrutiny is through an appeal by a member of the council, then that normally means there is something wrong. That automatically means that the staff will be concerned and worried, and will find it difficult to be a friend to the scrutiny process. So I would like to see two options for the way in which scrutiny would be undertaken. And so I would like to propose adding a small paragraph, a small sentence at the end of paragraph 4. And that sentence reads, as the work programme for each year is planned, a scrutiny programme will be planned alongside it. This will either monitor how new activities have settled in or reinvigorate those that are long-running activities. So that it's there automatically. People know that scrutiny will come, not just if we're concerned, but it's there as part of our programme of monitoring and support for ensuring that there is a good practice and that residents will feel comfortable that we are ensuring good value for money. I think that the town clerk has been able to put those words up. I put that to you as a possible addition to the policy. Is anyone willing to second that? Okay, Cass, thank you.
Because it's a recommendation from a particular committee. It's a recommendation.
It doesn't stop individuals still making a request for a scrutiny process.
As this is coming up, the town clerk's just informed me that as this is coming from the finance and government recommendation, would anybody from that committee like to speak about that?
Ms. Chair.
That's a way.
Okay.
I'm on that committee and I'm very happy to second, which I think indicates that I've thought about it and I'm in favour of it.
And Councillor Northern, you're on that committee, and you also feel.
Yes, we have no problem with the words that are written, so in the proposal, this is an addition to it. I don't see these words as fundamentally changing the policy that's written. It's an addition to, not a fundamental change, so we're going to vote on it shortly, and that's the way the process goes, and I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
Anybody else like to come in? Councillor Haddon.
Thank you very much. Officers won't be surprised to hear these words come out of my mouth. Love to see a process flow with this. Very lengthy Word document that could be summed up on an A4 page of how scrutiny works. And I recommend a bit of software called Visio. So in Microsoft, rather than using boxes on Word, it makes making process flows really easy. But I don't need to make that as an amendment tonight, and that can just be put on the forward as added in, I'm sure. My question is actually on point 1 of the policy, and it's about us only scrutinising effectively our own functions, our own council. Now, I know that bigger councils have the remit of scrutinising other services if a request is put forward. Councillor Taylor's got more experience in that as a former scrutiny chair than I've got. And I'm just wondering if there is any benefit for us to actually be able to widen our scope, because quite often we hear of local things, maybe a group or an organisation where they would benefit from some scrutiny, which could lead to better support for that group at a local level, where it normally gets missed by higher organisations. So I'm just wondering whether or not there is scope within this policy that we could scrutinise other things that are happening in the town. Again, with that critical friend view, and look to offer support to organisations through scrutiny that are working in our town.
Thank you, Chair. I would strongly advise councillors to maintain the scrutiny policy as it is written. In other councils, you're right, Councillor Hope, such as Dorset Council has a scrutiny function over public health and some other aspects, but that is laid down in legislation and law. The Town Council has no legal remit to scrutinise as a process third parties, and I would be a little concerned that the council might be seen as, and to maintain a plain English dialogue, sticking its nose in where we don't have that remit. We have excellent partnership working within the council, and I'd much rather to see where there are those opportunities for us to help other organisations develop, maybe through our community development work, our community networking, or our partnership working on a person to person, that we address issues that way, and also via the close working that a lot of councillors have with those local groups, such as the BID, such as Dorset Council, and such as local health networks. That would be my advice.
Anybody else would like to comment? So if we now could move to a vote, so if we're to go with the recommendation that they approve the policy for adoption with the addition of the words that councillor Harris has given us tonight, which are now up on the screen.
I'll propose that.
Proposed by councillor Harris. Can I have a second, please?
Councillor Wellington.
Councillor Mellon. Do a vote, please, from everybody in favour.
And that is unanimous, Chair,
Thank you. We now come to item 19, which is the beach operations building lease. This item is being deferred until the next meeting because the attached lease document requires updating. There is no impact on the operational element as the tenants are currently holding over on their previous lease. So we move on to item 20, which is the sealing of the lease for the marsh. Does anybody wish to comment? Or, sorry, did you want to introduce the speech of me?
So hopefully this is quite straightforward. Since 1st April 2019, Raven Town Council have been managing the marsh under a memorandum of understanding for the freehold and land Dorset Council. For the last 6 years, officers from both councils have been negotiating the lease and following agreement from officers and council's legal representatives, we now offer with a space where we can now seal the lease. That's what's before you this evening.
Thank you. Any comments from councillors? No. Then can I ask you, sorry, councillor.
I'd like to propose, please, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, councillor Hope. All those in favour?
That is unanimous, thank you, Chair.
Now we come to item 21. Sealing of the lease of land adjoining South Hill Play Area. Sinead, can I ask you to?
Absolutely. So for those of you that aren't aware, this is a piece of land that's at South Hill. The kids are off site previously was located there, so it's a free school. I think it was free school, play school, quite big. And many years ago it closed down. It's Dorset Council area land and former councillor Pete Barrow, we're really passionate about as a council taking this piece of land on because it's right next to our play park. We have been going through this process, I would say, for a good 3 years with the Dorset Council's assets team, and we are now in a place to still lease so that we can take on this piece of land and manage it ourselves. So before you this evening, we have finally got the lease for the land joining South Hill Play Area to be sued.
Sorry, councillor Harris.
Thank you very much. I'd certainly like to ask and thank the officers for their hard work in trying to get this across. I think unfortunately it's been a bit longer, Charmaine, than you said. I think it's been about 6 years that Pete first actually asked for something to happen when we saw what the land was being transferred across. It's right next to one of our play areas. We've raised the money locally for a nice piece of equipment to go on that land because it's the only bit of flat land that play area will have. So we're just desperate to get ahead. The children who raised the money, of course, are now 10 years older. But, so we may have to change our plans in terms of what we put on the land. But it won't cost the council anything because the local community has raised the funds for the piece of equipment. So thank you very much, officers, for getting us to this place.
Anybody else like to speak? So therefore, it is the proposal that we accept the officer's recommendation about the sealing of the lease of the land adjoining South Hill Play Area is.
I'll propose it.
Proposed by councillor Harris. Councillor Barrow.
I might want.
Everyone in favour?
And that is unanimous, Chair.
Really, well done, David. Finally.
Got a meeting next
Now,
week.
you've got other things to like.
Moving through this now, item 22, information items. These are, we've just asked to note these. Does anybody wanting to make any comments? Not?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Why did you give them the option?
I've spent part of this week working at Tumbledown on an archaeological dig. That's part of the Dorset Archaeological Week. We've had Westfield School in that have been showering away in the sunshine and they managed to go home still standing. We've had Dorset Abilities in. We've got South Hill School, including a relative of Councillor Furman's coming in tomorrow. And we have an invite which hasn't been advertised very much, I think, for public to come along in the afternoon and have a look at the archaeological dig, the finds that were found and the report that's on a display board that was done in 2020. We managed to do an archaeological dig during lockdown, and there's even a picture of us wearing our masks. So if you'd like to come along, and that involved the community coming along and being involved. So that's an invite. So apologies for abusing this place to make that promotion. Thank you.
Thank you. So everybody else, so councillors, can we please note those items? And at 8:20:31, I close the meeting.